Hello, welcome back. Today's show is a quick talk about leadership, one of my favorite topics because so many things come down to it, and that's what sets the culture for your business. Doesn't matter how small that business is. So join us in this lovely three-way conversation where we're asking and answering the questions about leadership that we think you might be interested in hearing our opinions on. See you on the other side. This is the Sales Ops Effect, where we drive predictable growth in small to medium-sized businesses.
Experience, what's the strongest link between effective leadership and increased sales growth? Are there any specific leadership traits that tend to drive sales success?
Leadership traits. I think it's remembering that sales is a part of the business. A really good sales leader doesn't treat sales as if it's something separate from the rest of the company. It's make sure that the department and the people within it are still accountable. Because once you start saying, oh, we're better than them, then people start cutting corners. And then you might have sales coming in, but that won't necessarily lead to revenue because you'll end up having refunds if people are selling things that you can't deliver, for example. So I think as a true sales leader, it's remembering what this is all for and not just focusing on the numbers. The people that are focusing on the numbers are the people that report to them. But as a leader, they need to think wider than that.
I've seen so many times where people are promoted in sales and then they just think it's all about them and all about the one kind of metric that they've got to look after, when actually there's whole other teams and areas that they need to consider. You know, you can't do sales if you don't have a good marketing team behind you, if you're not working with customer service, like you said, if you're selling something that you can't deliver or that isn't within the right package, that's going to just lead to things going wrong elsewhere. You've got to think much wider than just that one sales team, which is where when you get promoted, you are always just in that one tiny bubble of your own sales, that you had that one metric to meet, that one thing to do. And then as soon as you're a leader, you've got so many other things to think about. And you see it time and again where people are still focused on that small thing, and need to really open up and get to know what's going on in other departments and how they can support each other. I think, a true leader really knows what's going on in the whole company, not just in their small bit of it.
I've been in marketing, I've been in sales, and I've been sort of customer success. I think one of the smartest things I ever saw was a marketing and sales leader team actually job swapped for 3 months. So they could actually learn and understand what the complexities and what the issues were and what the pain points for each other's job. And they obviously buddied up with each other to ensure that things didn't go through the floorboards, whatever. But I think it was, it actually engendered a much better understanding of how to collaborate and integrate through the whole sales and marketing process, rather than be seen as just two independent areas that tend to work in conflict where they should be working in collaboration. They often work in conflict with the leads that marketing send are rubbish, or sales just aren't following up on these. And I think by understanding the roles and the complexities in the operations, was a great sort of light bulb moment for them all, and it managed to actually work more collaboratively together.
What's our next question?
What's the biggest challenges they face in connecting with sales teams, and how can they overcome these to foster a stronger performance?
Andy, do you want to start this one?
I guess for me, the biggest challenges is often, I find with sales teams, you have strong characters who do things their way, and they want you to fit with them rather than kind of accepting some of the things you might bring on board. So I think it really is a case of fostering those relationships early on, not just with the sales team's leaders, but the sales team's people and staff themselves, and really understanding what some of their pain points are. And if you can come out with some quick solutions that might make things easier or smooth some of the paths to collaboration, then I think you start to engender that trust.
Yeah, I think earning a team's trust and credibility is the first thing that you need to do in any leadership role, but certainly in sales. Because you're so results driven, you often don't have time to just sit back and get to know the team and build that kind of one-on-one trust with them. So I think you're right, like spending a bit of time getting to know them, understanding what their strengths are, what they are good at and what they enjoy can be really helpful in then working out how best to use that team together. If you don't spend some time really getting down to understanding each person in that role, you're not going to know how best to use those people or what they're going to struggle with. So yeah, building the rapport, getting to know the people, I think is a massive quick win for anybody that's coming straight into a role or into a new role.
And also, one of the things that I've coached leaders on is, like you said, making sure you're getting to know people, but also the sales department isn't naturally a place where people operate as a team. It's naturally much more solo, I'm doing me for mine kind of situation. And whilst that makes sense sometimes, because, you know, people are emboldened by competition and things like that, one of the ways that has worked for me when I've been coaching leaders is, like how you said, to ask them ask them and figure out what they're great at and what they need help with. And if you know that about everybody in your team, then you can start asking them to help out each other by actively saying, hey, Sarah is really good at topic A, whereas Billy's really good at topic B. And they where they fall down is the opposite version. So getting them to help each other and making that an active thing, not sending them to go and talk to the other person, actively bringing them into the meeting and say, hey, you're really good at this, you're really good at that, you need help with this, you need help with that. I want you to work together and we're going to check back in a couple of weeks to see how it happens. I think there's a wall that is up with a lot of salespeople, probably just by the environment that we're in. That means that people they want to keep everything to themselves. But when you encourage them to work with each other, then that means when a deal comes in and let's say you can't get a hold of a manager or something like that, you're more likely to go and talk to your friend and say, hey, this is a really big thing. I need to get back to them within an hour. I'm not sure what to say. Can you at least just read over this for me? Whereas there are so many sales teams where people don't feel like they can say that. So I think encouraging the connection between each other as well would really help.
Yeah, and I think as a leader, it's important to understand, okay, what is the set of traits that you need within a good team? You're never going to have individuals that cover them all, but you want a team that cover them all and understand how they can work together. And I think as the leader as well is often one thing that I've done is make sure that my team actually recognize that for a lot of what they do, they are better than me. You know, they individually they have components that they are the expert, and my job is to give them the headspace and the freedom to be good at what they do, rather than try to prove that I'm better than them. Or that's poor leadership for me. Good leadership is understanding the tool set that you have, the skills that you have, and using them accordingly, and making sure that you help the people rise and achieve well in the areas they're good at.
You see so many people who take on a management role and automatically think they have to do everything. They have to be the one that shares all the skills. They have to be the one that makes sure everybody's doing things correctly or in the right way. And you know what you guys were both just saying then about sharing the team's expertise or getting them to help each other, that gives you time back, right, as well, to be able to do what you need to do to help other people in the team, to really lead a team. It gives you the time back. You need to say that you're not micromanaging, and that builds a lot of trust as well to be able to then lead them much better.
Management is a skill in and of itself. Leadership is a skill in and of itself. And I think a lot of people, whilst we've all heard it by now, I think a lot of people don't fully understand that because so many of us have had many poor managers. I definitely haven't had a 50-50 split. I can tell you that much. There's one person I can think of right now that was damn near perfect. So when many people have had that experience of leadership, the bar is, they don't expect much. They just hope that the person doesn't get in their way, you know?
And I think I've also seen leadership where everybody in the team who had different roles, different skill sets, were all given the same objectives. It's like, you know, how is that going to improve or embolden them if you're objectivizing them on things which they know they're not good at, and pulling down on things they are good at and trying to make everybody equal? It's like those objectives should be team objectives, and then carve them up and get the best out of everybody.
Salespeople are naturally competitive, and if you give somebody a objective that they know somebody else is going to be better at and going to achieve quicker, that's the first easiest way to demotivate somebody. You're not going to get to your KPIs if you're just giving everybody the same objective. So what's one mindset shift you believe all sales leaders should embrace to unlock both individual and team growth? So I would say that a mindset shift that a lot of sales leaders and leaders in general can take advantage of is kind of actively reflecting. So in sales especially, it's go, go, go. You've got to hit this number, you've got to hit that number. There's never any time to kind of take a rest or to look back at what you've done to really assess whether it was good enough. And I think one of the biggest things that you could do is really take some time each week to look back at how your team have done and how you've done. What could have been better? What went well? What do you never want to do again? And then using that to go forward. I know I've worked in sales teams, I've worked with lots of teams, and so many people don't take that moment to look back and go, okay, actually that worked really well, we're going to do that again, or that didn't work well, and then assess and reflect and feedback on why it didn't work well, to then move forward. If you don't look back, you don't know what you need to do to go forward. And I think just taking that bit of time would be a really good shift for a lot of people.
I think, seeing as I very firmly agree with that, I think I'm going to go with the idea of rules not being straitjackets. So in my experience, most sales directors, and this is no offense to anybody watching or listening, but in my experience, many sales directors become sales directors because they've aged out of doing the normal sales job, and they simply cannot be paid more without taking on extra responsibilities. And so therefore they become leaders without necessarily giving them leadership training, coaching, anything like that. They might get it afterwards, but there hasn't been an active steer towards that. So when people who worked, well, they got the numbers and things like that, when they did it for themselves, they may have had a tendency to draw outside the lines and things like that. But when you're a leader, you've got to be talking to the other leaders. You can't do that. So the shift would be working with the process creators and not thinking that anything that says this is the way that we need to do it for the company means that it's going to hinder sales. If you work with people who set up the guidelines and set up the processes, then actually they can work for you. It's not a given that it's going to work against you, particularly if you open up lines of communication. So I just want to take the walls down on communication between other departments. I think that would be a good shift for me.
And I'm going to suggest we take the ceiling off, because it's exactly what you said. People get to that level because the only way they can get paid more is doing something which they're shit at. It's this mindset we seem to have in business that you have to raise through the ranks, and you take people who are really, really good practitioners, you put them into jobs they're not good at, and you need to find the roles for them. Why can't those people become highly paid coaches and train the rest of the team, but not have the management responsibility, which they just don't want, which hinders them? You see things failing all the time where people hit this invisible glass ceiling that is wrong. Start to think a little bit outside the box about, we have this individual, they're brilliant, they're not being paid enough, but they're so valuable. How can we utilize them better? How can we give them a role where they can reach that ceiling or reach that goal without having to give them all the operational management responsibilities, which is going to make them poorer at what they do?
Yeah. Gosh, how many people have been managed by someone who was amazing at their job, and then all of a sudden they had to look after you and didn't know how to do that? It's happened to everybody, right?
Different skills. If you're amazing at the skills that you're exhibiting, great, but that doesn't automatically mean, oh yeah, so we'll give you some people and you'll know how to manage them. It doesn't work like that. I think it's very old school, to be perfectly honest, the idea that there's only one route to the top. But we do live in such more a modern environment now. You can create roles that work for your business. Your business doesn't have to be a carbon copy of somebody else's business. If they don't have a role that looks like this, that doesn't mean you can't have it. There's no right or wrong other than, do you want to keep this person? Do you want to keep them happy? What can you do within your price range? Let's be more flexible. So thank you for your time. I know this was a quick fire questions, but I did enjoy it. It went very, very quickly. So Andy, where can the good people watching and listening to this find you?
Well, I have a couple of areas of business. One is a customer experience consultancy called CX Strategy, and the other is actually using that customer experience to help people to gather and use reviews to drive business growth and sales, to support that sales process, more for smaller businesses where they don't have sales teams, so they can empower their customers to be their sales team.
Thank you. And what was that website again?
That's Customer Reviews Expert, which is in progress.
Watch this space, and you're on LinkedIn. Okay, fantastic.
Andy Coghlan, just the normal LinkedIn with Andy Coghlan at the end.
Thank you. Jancis, how about you? Where can people find you?
Yeah, so I work with a company called Seventh Wave. We look after leadership and managers in companies. We inspire them to be the best version of themselves. And you can find me on LinkedIn. So I'm Jancis Dunn. You put in Jancis, it'll probably come up pretty quickly. There's not many of us about. Or just the Seventh Wave website, where you can find out more about what we do. And that is seventh-wave.co.uk.
Fantastic. And I am Charlene Thompson. You can find me at salesopseffect.com, also on LinkedIn. And I work with small and medium-sized businesses to help them navigate their growth journeys with data that works as well as their gut instinct. So thank you for talking with us all today. This is really great. And comment wherever you're seeing this and let us know if you've got any other questions for us, and we might do a round two. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, please look at the list of other episodes. I'm sure there's another one that can help you. See you next time.